Hello, everybody. Welcome to The John Show. My name is John. This is my show. And today we're going to ride that Fallout algorithm a little harder, and we're going to get into a review and then some theory crafting around the new Fallout series. If you haven't seen it, it's on Amazon Prime Video. 8 episodes, each one's roughly an hour. I think the first 2 are a little over an hour, then the rest of them are about 48, 55-ish minutes or so. Spoiler-free review, and then I will tell you when we get to the spoiler zone. Spoiler-free review first. So, the show was awesome. As somebody who has not played the Interplay era games, but has kept up with the lore, and then I started playing in the Bethesda era, I feel like they did a really good job of maintaining the integrity of the canon while definitely using a lot of Bethesda era information to mold that previous Interplay canon. All right. So what I mean by that is places that were in the first 2 games are not necessarily where you might think they are in the world. Because when Bethesda makes their maps, they just kinda loosely go by, geography. I think they did a really good job of sticking to canon. We will get into all the other discussion later. If you're not aware, there is a huge hubbub in the Fallout community, in the fandom. People are mad about things that happen in the show. We will talk about that when we get there. Story-wise, it's not following one of the games. It's not rehashing old stuff. This is a new story in the Fallout world. I love that. I think they did a really good job of showing the different pockets of life in that world. You have people that live in vaults. You have people that live up in the wastelands. You have people that live in the wastelands in squalor, all the way up to people living in the wasteland in basically pre-war comforts, in pre-war style. Not necessarily, because it's all been bombed out and recycled and rehabbed. But you've got I don't want to spoil it. So they get you get to look at all the different types of life. There are even moments where you get to see tribals, which was a really big thing in the first 2 games. And in New Vegas, you kind of get to see tribal life. In the Honest Hearts DLC, you get to see some tribal life, which was really cool to see that, not thrown in, but to see that appear in the show in a way where you're kind of like, what is going on? And then at some point you're like, oh snap, it's the tribals. So I thought that was really cool. It does a good job of kind of showing you things like, hey, this is the 10mm handgun. And you see it just long enough for your brain to go, I know what that is. And then the characters use it, and it's not done in a way where every time somebody has to pull out their weapon, they have to show you, now it's the 10mm. Now it's the laser pistol. Now it's the rifle. Now it's the shotgun. But all the weapons do get their own time to shine, so to speak. Also, something I really like. I think they did a really good job with the colors they used. Everything from the blue and yellow of the vault suit to the very mechanical environments of the vaults themselves to the wastelands being wastelands. There were a few times when just certain scene transitions did kind of seem like you went from a desert to a forest and then back to a desert. But I'm from the Northwest, where it's all pretty much forests until you cross the mountains, then it's desert. But apparently that's what parts of California is like. So, okay, problem solved. So that was cool. And when they did that, it wasn't like, yeah, we're in the wood environment, but it's still the wasteland. So let's use the piss yellow, this is Mexico filter, or the piss green radiation filter. They let you see the woods or whatever. And that was pretty cool also. They didn't ham up the, oh, this is the wasteland, this is post-apocalypse, you know. Some of it looked like, you know, wasn't that bad. I mean, obviously it's not supposed to be great, but they did a good job in that. There's a few scenes that are kind of dark, like, you know, where you can't really tell exactly every detail of what's going on, but the ambiance is still done in such a way, like the sound, engineering, the different background noises and environmental noises that you can hear. So you don't necessarily see everything that's going on, but you know where they're at. I mean, maybe not specifically geographically know where they're at, but you know, like they are outside near a town because you can hear the town in the distance, but you can also tell that they are far away enough that their business wouldn't be overheard probably in the town, stuff like that. So again, something I really enjoyed that they did. So color, sound, awesome. I think everybody in the show acted well. I recognize a lot of the people, like Blind Al I recognized, Kyle MacLachlan I recognized, the Cyclops, I recognize him, and the guy, Fred Armisen, the guy that played the radio DJ, which I thought was kind of cool that they kind of included that in there too, the radio and the DJ. That was pretty rad. I hope that's not really a spoiler that there is a radio in the show. Again, anybody who's not aware, the Bethesda era games, there is a radio that you can access in game and listen to really cool 1940s and 50s era music. I think there is stuff from much earlier, like in the 20s and 30s, but it's generally sort of a big band, bluesy, rockabilly feel to a lot of the music in those games, and they did a good job of sort of translating that idea of having the radio into the show. So that was cool also. The story is well presented. I would have liked for some of the scenes to have been whole episodes. I think that would have been kind of cool, but it didn't take away from their storytelling process. So again, that's my own personal opinion, I guess. Okay, here's another thing. I binge watched it from start to finish. I don't really do that. I've never really binge watched a show like that. Even like back when I used to DVR like 25 hours of wrestling a week, I didn't sit and watch 25 hours of wrestling a week. I might go through 2 episodes of TNA, and then now I got 3 episodes of Raw to catch up on. So I might watch one of those, but then something happens at the end of Raw. I want to see what happened on SmackDown. So then I watch SmackDown. So I don't do that anymore. Don't really have the time to do that anymore. So I watched all 8 episodes. That's how good it was. I really liked it. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, only because I binged it. If it was one of those things that had come out week by week, it would probably be sitting at a good 8.5 out of 10. But the fact that it had me so engaged that I decided to binge it instead of taking it an episode at a time, 9 out of 10. That is my review. Now we're going to be entering into spoiler territory. All 8 episodes have been out for a couple of weeks now. So if you haven't watched it by now, stop watching this video, go back and watch it, then come back to the video, and we will continue to discuss. Are you back? All right, cool. Let's talk about theory. A lot of stuff went down in this show. Okay, a lot of weird things that didn't make sense, and some of this stuff upset a lot of people. So we're going to talk about the first one, the NCR, New California Republic. What happened? Well, it was cleared up between the time that the show came out, the controversy arose, and me recording this. The fall of Shady Sands did not mean Shady Sands got bombed the fuck out. So 2277. Oh, by the way, I've been hearing that people have been getting copyright dinged by Amazon for using screenshots from the show. So that's why I'm not using any screenshots in this video. It has nothing to do with the fact that I can't figure out how to get OBS to record it or my computer to screenshot it, because every time I try, my screen turns black. That's not why at all. It's because Amazon, I promise. So in the show, there is a blackboard that has a timeline of Shady Sands, and it basically kind of shows you what happened in the first game, or before the first game, the second game, and then kind of what happened between that and New Vegas. Then there's a box. It says The Fall of Shady Sands 2277, which is the time frame that Fallout 3 takes place. And I think a lot of people saw that and thought that that means, because there wasn't a little box next to it that said 2281 Fallout New Vegas happens here, that Fallout New Vegas didn't happen. That's not the case. That arrow next to the box that then points towards the mushroom cloud, that arrow is the 4 years between 2277 and 2281 when the bombs fell onto Shady Sands. And they're not nukes. Not only did Todd Howard have to come out and say specifically they are not nukes, it's in the show. Every time they are around any kind of irradiated water or some kind of mutated beast, you hear the clicking of the rads on the Pip-Boy. When Lucy and Maximus are standing at the bomb crater next to Shady Sands, there's no ticking. At least I do not remember any ticking. It was not nuked. They're okay. They can rebuild. I mean, they're not fine, but they can rebuild. They could come back. So what probably happened in Shady Sand was some kind of, not just, localized political strife, but they were going through not really a civil war, but civil unrest back home. Their economy was failing, and they were fighting the Brotherhood of Steel. They fought them at Helios 1. They fought them at Hoover Dam. So they were probably also fighting them in California. So that's what I think actually happened to Shady Sands. The next one, the Ghoul Juice. The Cooper Howard's character, the Ghoul, he takes some kind of a drug to prevent him from becoming feral. And now there is talk, is this a retcon? Is this canon? Well, I don't believe it's a retcon. It's not retroactive continuity. It is just new. And for all we know, only local. I think what we will find, and this goes into another character theory I have, is that there is still somebody in the wasteland who can create chems of varying results. And this person's work may have been used to create this ghoul serum. It's also possible this could be the mysterious serum from Fallout 4. Derived from the blood of Lorenzo Cabot. We don't know how that would happen unless, as suspected in Fallout 4, I believe, that there could also be a hidden city under the Mojave Wasteland. Maybe somebody else got a hold of the same type of alien crown device that Lorenzo Cabot had, but then that would also mean that somebody else found out about taking their blood, synthesizing the serum out of it, and all that stuff. So that's a possibility. I think it is a possibility of, in my opinion, lower probability. Could it be FEV? They are on the West Coast. They are in the, not close to, but in the general vicinity geographically of Mariposa Base. It could be FEV. It could be. And I'm not ruling out FEV for a few things. We always got to keep that out there. Let's see, what else are we going to talk about? Oh, here is a theory I had my next theory would be about the Brotherhood of Steel. And I'm going to mention that even though I am almost certain I'm wrong, but I have to say this because there's something about this group of Brotherhood that I don't like, okay? So I believe this group of Brotherhood people are a splinter faction. Maybe not necessarily outcasts, but they sound like they have a more extremist ideology like Father Elijah. They have the red logo, which we've only ever seen it in white or gold on armor, and theirs is red. The only other people with the red on their armor are the Brotherhood outcasts from Fallout 3. The Brotherhood outcasts in Fallout 3 are more like the West Coast than the group that stayed with Lion. So maybe this group is an outcast group, or at the very least, maybe they are like a special forces unit or Delta Force, Navy SEALs type, where they are their own group sectioned off from the rest of the Brotherhood for special missions. But there's just something really off about this group. None of the people seem like Knight material. Titus didn't seem like Knight material. Thaddeus, not really Knight material. I got to imagine that what they're trying to imply with Titus is that all the knights are like that. That the only thing that makes the knight is the armor in this group. But the thing that kills that theory for me is the Pridwen, because the Pridwen, they said was not the Pridwen, but the Cassinwin or whatever is actually the Pridwen now. And I've heard a couple theories, one that it wasn't supposed to be the Pridwen, but when they made it, whoever made it wrote Pridwen on the side of it, and that they just decided to go with it. Maybe that's the case, maybe not. If it is the Pridwen, well then that ruins my theory. Never mind. But that one bit aside, I still think this is not the Brotherhood of Steel. The guy that runs it, I can't remember his name, but that guy in the robe that talks real creepy to Maximus, there's something wrong with him. And there's something wrong with Maximus. But we will get into that later. So I have what I call my master theory, which includes my predictions for season 2. I don't think Maximus was saved by the Brotherhood of Steel. I believe he was spared. I think the Brotherhood of Steel came into Shady Sands on some kind of a hit mission because of the Brotherhood of Steel NCR beef. This is kind of like what happened to Selene in Underworld with Victor. Victor killed her family, but he couldn't kill her. So he adopted her, turned her into a vampire, and then, kind of perpetrated this lie that somebody else was the bad guy, the Lycans, to form her into a weapon against them. I think that's what's going on. I think that the Brotherhood of Steel took out Shady Sands, that whoever that knight was, and maybe that knight was that older guy when he was younger, but that knight couldn't kill Maximus, took him, and now he's a part of the Brotherhood of Steel. He wasn't ever Brotherhood material to begin with. And I'm willing to bet a lot of those people that are in the Brotherhood, that are all Maximus's age, are from a similar situation. Essentially kind of doing what Caesar did, but they believe they're doing it justly because they're the Brotherhood. We're going to take these little orphans and whip them into shape. That's what I think. And that is not the only sort of underworld reference, because if you remember in the Underworld series, what the vampires were doing and had been doing for a very long time was leapfrogging through time, where we would have some of the vampires asleep and then the other vampires would be awake. They would be running the coven, and then after a while they would go to sleep. Another vampire would come out, run the coven. That's what Vault 31 is. People leapfrogging through time asleep. That's not really a theory. That's just what I think. I also believe that Moldaver blames Hank for the destruction at Shady Sands. But I don't think he had anything to do with it. Maybe. But they do know each other, which doesn't make any sense. She introduces herself by her name, her actual name, to Hank in episode 1, when she comes out of Vault 32 pretending to be the Overseer. But then after all the chaos and all the fighting at the wedding scene, he's like, I think I know who you are. Well, and she's also from the pre-war time. She was alive concurrently with him in 2077. I think they know each other. I think she thinks Hank did it, but I don't think he did it. Again, that's just what I think. I'm not trying to convince anybody. This is just what I think. Now, clearly, as seen in the end of the series in episode 8, Hank has power armor training. It isn't positive if he's been a veteran. He could be. Cooper Howard was. The Ghoul, he was a veteran prior to becoming an actor, prior to the events of the Great War and everything. But my guess is that Hank is Enclave, because Enclave and Vault-Tec are buddies. They work hand in hand with each other. So I think that Hank, working for Vault-Tec, was placed there by the Enclave. And of course, the Enclave has their own power armor, so Hank would know how to operate it. And if you don't know, if you're a newcomer to the Fallout series, just, coming and watching the show. You have to have training in order to be able to use the power armor. In game, it basically requires you to acquire a certain power up, a perk, something that allows your character to use the armor. Otherwise, you can't equip it and wear it and use it in game. The lore reason is that there are motors and hydraulic accentuators. Basically, it's a mechanical suit. Right? It's a mechanical suit of armor that augments your strength. And if you don't know how to operate it properly, if you were to move your arm too fast, it could literally rip your arm out of the socket. That was described in somewhere, I can't remember. But that's why you have to have training. So in order, for Hank to be running to New Vegas from California in power armor, he would have to have training to do this. All right? So Hank is Enclave. That's what I'm thinking. And again, he's heading to New Vegas. Why? Well, I think he's heading to New Vegas for a few reasons. One, there is an Enclave Remnants bunker, which we see in New Vegas, so I think he's looking to make contact with home base. Plus, get himself a proper set of Enclave Mark II power armor, maybe a plasma weapon. I also think that Hank is trying to get to Mr. House. Mr. House is working with Vault-Tec. That's already established in the show. And we also know from Fallout New Vegas that Mr. House is using his connections to figure out the probabilities of who's launching, when are they launching, and how many are going to be coming his way. Because Mr. House is trying to save New Vegas after all. He doesn't want it to go. So he's trying to do whatever he can. I don't believe that he will be ultimately working with Vault-Tec. I think we'll find out that at some point he decides he's out because he got whatever information he needed for his equation and his algorithm. That's what I think, why I think he's there. I also think that Hank suspected or was told by Mr. House himself that House was going to try to use some kind of technology to outlive the war and everything after. It wasn't a secret that Mr. House was a weirdo with technology. Raul says something about them having magazines in Mexico that talked about Mr. House scanning his girlfriends. So I think Hank knew that House would still be around. He would have figured something out. Either some kind of a cryopod like Hank used, or maybe Hank knew about the sort of stasis pod life support system that House eventually ended up purchasing, building, whatever. I think, Hank, being a member of Vault-Tec, and in my opinion, a member of the Enclave, was hip to all that shit. So that's why I think he was going there, but I don't think he'll find Mr. House. I believe that Hank is trying to find the Omertas. There's nothing that says the residents of Vault 31 haven't been waking up and going to sleep periodically, maybe to do recon, to see what's going on in the area. We also know that the Omertas buy guns from Mick and Ralph, so they're probably selling them illegally somewhere, as well as keeping some to arm themselves. So they are the gun runners of the area, besides the gun runners. So I think Hank will need weapons, because I think he'll find the bunker empty, because they kind of empty it during the events of New Vegas. I think that we will absolutely get Mr. House on the computer screen, like that version of Mr. House, but after a while, something will happen, a bit of a slip up, at which point the screen will change. Yes Man will appear. Now remember, after the upgrade, Yes Man says he can say no now. And he can lie, apparently. So Yes Man will probably tell us what happened in some kind of an unreliable narrator style, which I think what we will find out is that the Legion ending is probably canon. They defeat the NCR at the Hoover Dam, and then Lanius, because Caesar had a brain tumor and is dead, blitzes west, only to be stopped at New Vegas by the Boomers. Because the Boomers don't care. They dropped holy ordnance on the Legion until the Legion was no more. It's just too bad that Las Vegas was in the way. That, or the NCR unleashes Archimedes 2 as like a last resort as they retreat, but I like the Boomers. We're gonna go with the Boomers. So that's what I think we'll find out from New Vegas. But as that was happening, Yes Man was hiding in the Lucky 38. The Courier was able to upgrade the Securitron army, but there was not reason to deploy them with the bombers inbound to take care of the Legion. So now, Victor is just roaming around New Vegas as the sheriff. The Fiends were still hiding in Vault 3, the ones that were left, and the White Glove Society reverted back to being cannibals. and they're now hiding out in the shell of the Ultralux. The other families are gone. Expect there to be a shot in the tops showing Benny's suit in a glass case as an homage to Matthew Perry, R.I.P. I think what would really be cool though is if Hank has to escape from the strip for whatever reasons, and he has to go to the tops and then go to Benny's room, out the back door that leads to Benny's elevator, which then leads to some cut content in the blocked area of Vault 21. If you don't know, there's a hidden area in Fallout New Vegas. I'm pretty sure that it was cut content, but when you meet up with Benny in his room and then through the conversation you allow him to escape, he runs through a door and then you can't follow him. The door locks immediately behind him. But if you can get through that door either through no clipping or if you can kill Benny between the time the conversation ends and before he goes through that door, then the door will remain unlocked and you can go through it, I think. But if you can get through it, it leads to this back hallway area that eventually leads you into what I think is supposed to be the cemented off area in Vault 21. And this is how Benny escapes off the strip only to be caught by the Legion later, and that's when you meet up with him at Cottonwood Cove and Caesar's Camp. I just think that would be a kind of a cool Easter egg if they did that. I don't think that's actually going to happen. I think that would just be pretty fucking rad. Meanwhile, Lucy and Cooper are heading to find his family, which will lead to one of two conclusions. Either we find out they made it to the good vault, i.e. the Vault-Tec vault, where Barb is probably dead because her pod failed, and then Janie gets woken up and is an old woman now, or they got taken to an oil rig. My guess is they'll go with the former, but maybe Janie will be transferred to an oil rig once she's grown, so she can fulfill the Enclave and Vault-Tec's goal of managing the world post-apocalypse. Hopefully, we'll get a cool oil rig scene, like a battle on an oil rig. All right, now's the time where I'm going to say some things that I know people are not going to like. But I think that there's a few characters that you guys love that are actually beginning their villain arc. Norm is on a villain arc. The things he says about being a coward and how nobody wanted his dad back because then they couldn't have the power. I think he's going to go into a pod. Lucy will see this as she's in the good vault, then release Norm. That will make him overseer of Vault 33. This might be one of those things where we see Norm go into the pod in episode 1 or 2 of season 2. Then he'll get released by the end of the season, having spent some time in the pod. Maybe having nightmares, maybe having undergone some kind of Stanislaus Braun experimental brain reconditioning, but I think that we'll find out he's a lot more like Hank than we'll be happy with. Plus, I did not like Rico. All right, I'm just gonna say that I did not like Rico. But yeah, I think that Norm is gonna be a bad guy. I don't know if there will be a redemption arc, but I think that Norm is going to be a villain. And because there is sort of the outside world story and the in the vault story that's going on, I think that Norm's villain arc will just be an in the vault arc. I don't think it's going to matter in the grand scheme of things. Maybe he'll turn around before Lucy makes it back to the vault so that she doesn't have to see that. But Norm is on a villain arc. And Maximus. Poor Maximus. Also on a villain arc. Now, he may be on that Kylo Ren villain arc where he's rooted for because he's the love interest, and eventually after a bit he'll come around because the power of love. But I think he's on more of a Darth Vader arc. He wants revenge. That's his entire theme. He wants the power to hurt people he thinks deserve it. We've seen him watch one man die to achieve this. We've seen him attempt to murder another in order to hide the first act. We've watched him lie to people and manipulate people and events to get his way. And Dane, I think it's Dane, they are also not a well person. They maimed themselves to avoid duty. Could have slacked off, but razor blades their foot instead. Then allows leadership to believe it was an attack on them rather than a self-inflicted injury. Then, when Maximus tries to tell them that he didn't kill Moldaver, Dane knew it, but said he did it anyways, manipulating not only the system, but using their friend as a part in their scheme. Why? Because Dane wants power too, but Dane, like Maximus, is a coward. If Maximus Inspector Gadgeted his way into becoming a knight, Dane Mephisto'd their way into being his squire. Maximus will become a knight, Dane will become his squire, and Dane will begin to remove people from the path of leadership in front of Maximus, until Maximus is the head of the Brotherhood of Steel chapter. Then, when he thinks he has the power to get his revenge and an army to do it with, Dane gonna rise up behind him and slit his throat, metaphorically or literally. Either way, Dane betrays Maximus in the end. That's my theory. Let's talk about a couple side characters or sort of side theories. The Wasteland Doctor, or the Snake Oil Salesman, or the Chicken Fucker, although he's actually credited as Chicken Collector. I think that motherfucker is Myron, okay? We're bringing it back to an earlier thing. I think Myron survived Fallout 2, okay? Myron is a chemical genius. He is also a sexual deviant, and I know that canonically he was stabbed to death after the events of Fallout 2. But if the Wasteland Doctor can make a foot rebuilding immortality spray, then Myron, if he's the same guy, could survive a stabbing. And with all that, let's go to Thaddeus. I think Thaddeus is going to be the new Herald. The Wasteland Doctor gave him a version of the FEV, in my opinion. And that's why his foot just came back together. Also why he survived the arrow to the neck. My hope for season 2 is we'll see him with a little sprout on his nose or coming out of his ear. I also think that Thaddeus will, by season's 2 end, find a wrecked satellite in a drive-in parking lot and get zapped away to Big Mountain. Essentially, he'll be who gets all the weird wasteland events. He'll be like the lighter side of the Fallout encounters. That will be the stuff that we'll get through Thaddeus. We'll still get comedy, like comedic random events with Lucy and Cooper and Maximus and Dane, but I think that Thaddeus is going to get the things that, if it happened to everybody else, would take us as the viewer out of the suspension of belief. You know what I'm saying? So that's my hope for Thaddeus, at least, is that he'll get to become a lobotomite, and he'll maybe not Far Harbor, Point Lookout, get another chunk of his brain cut out, and then he'll be like, I don't know how much more I can spare, that kind of stuff. Eventually, the plant on his nose will grow bigger and bigger and bigger, and then, maybe by season 4 or 5, he'll finally be rooted down somewhere. At any rate, these are just hopes and dreams for seasons beyond what we have now. And lastly, I've seen a few iceberg videos for Fallout, and almost every single one of them had on that list somewhere, Dust is the true ending of Fallout New Vegas. If you don't know, briefly, Dust is a mod that takes place 20 years after Fallout New Vegas. The red cloud from the Sierra Madre finally makes its way through the Mojave. There's tunnelers, everybody's dead, the courier is gone, and it just kind of shows you basically like the worst outcome possible. There's a lot of red in that last scene. Could this be the beginnings of the Dust ending? That's just a theory. At any rate, thank you for listening to me talk about the Fallout show and sharing some of my theories with you guys. What do you think's gonna happen in the show? What are you looking forward to in season 2? And really, what didn't you like? I could nitpick. Actually, I ain't done. So I will nitpick a couple things that I think, in my opinion, could have been done a little better. All right. Number 1, the Yao Guai. The first time you see that Yao Guai, that looks like a really bad made-for-TV paper mache almost, just a really bad prosthetic character. And that goes for a few of the props in the game. Most of them look great. Almost every single weapon in the game, even like the laser guns and the big massive machine guns and stuff, they all looked awesome. But every now and then you come across something that literally looked like a cosplay prop, like somebody made it at home. And for a show like this, being a part of Amazon Prime, come on, y'all. Like, there were times when the power armor definitely looked like it was made from cosplay foam, and it looked like it had no weight or mass to it, And again, just kind of took me out. Every now and then you would see some kind of effect that was just not done well. Like when Maximus is like getting in the power armor for the very first time, that looked like the kind of green screen that they used in the Lion Witch and the Wardrobe that they used to play on PBS channel during the telethon. You know, like just, it was bad. It looked so bad. But that only lasted about 10 seconds. So once that was gone, I was back into it. And there were also times where the show would kind of go from what looked like film to digital and then back to film. And that just, to me, looks more like film school project than multi-million-dollar budgeted large studio created movie television series type thing, you know. Just in general, there's a couple of transitions where even in the same environment, like in the vault, they go from it almost looking like it has a film grain on it to then they cut to the next scene and it's crisp clear, you know, 4K, and then the next scene in another room in the vault is back to the film grain. And those transitions I didn't like going from scene to scene like that, but it didn't take me out as much as like the power armor looking like it was made of paper mache, you know. It just, and I don't mean that it looked bad, I mean as in it looked like it was lightweight. I'm really glad that all the ghouls didn't look like Cooper. Having played 3 in New Vegas, those ghouls are pretty gross, you know, like you can really see the missing chunks of skin and the muscle underneath and all that. And in seeing just Cooper in the trailers and stuff, I thought, oh, they made them all smooth, like the kid in the fridge in Fallout 4, or like a lot of the ghouls in Fallout 4, that where they're still really smooth and intact, unlike 3 in New Vegas, where even the still intelligent, docile ghouls are zombies. So I like that not all the ghouls look like Cooper. I was really scared there for a minute. Another thing that I noticed, and it's not just the Fallout series, they did this in The Walking Dead. As somebody who used to work for Dollar Tree as an operations manager for 14 years, if you watch the scene in the Super Duper Mart where Lucy is like fighting the ghouls and trying to negotiate for the drugs for Cooper from the organ salesman, what product is on the shelves in the background that is not specifically Fallout branded, like a Braxo cleaner or sugar bombs or whatever, was all Dollar Tree product. There was the Busy Baker baking soda, there was the Brim's popcorn, a couple other items that as somebody who, you know, had to stock a shelf or two in my day, I immediately recognized that shit. They did that in the Walking Dead first 2 or 3 seasons. Anytime they were raiding a store, all the items on the store were Dollar Tree products. Whether they were in a gas station, supermarket, pharmacy, they just spent $50 at Dollar Tree to dress an entire fucking store on a TV show. So I always find that funny when I see Dollar Tree stuff. I like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme, like the I can't whistle, but you know, the one where he's snapping his fingers and whistling at the TV. That's how I feel. Anyways, so those are my nitpicks. Those are my theories, and that's my review of the Fallout series. If I'm going to sum it all up, if you haven't, watch it. It is an amazingly well done adaptation of a video game series. It's an amazing look into a world that you've only been able to visit with an Xbox or a PC or a PlayStation. So if you are not a gamer and you have not checked this series out, you do not have to have played the games to enjoy the show. But I warn you, enjoying the show may lead to you playing the games. And if that's the case, welcome to the wasteland, friend. Thank you for watching The John Show. My name is John. This has been my show. If you've liked anything that I've done in this video, please like and subscribe, share it to people. I'm the little guy trying to, you know, punch up, so help me out here, all right? Thanks, love you guys, and take care now.